Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And first, I want to recognize my fellow Kentuckian, Adrian Bush, who is testifying with us today. Adrian, how are you? As Executive Director of the Homeless and Housing Coalition of Kentucky, Adrian and her team have done some truly life-changing work in the Commonwealth. And while we may disagree on the merits of the federal government's exclusive reliance on the Housing First policy, I do want to thank her and her team for their advocacy on behalf of the over 4,000 street and sheltered homeless and disadvantaged Kentuckians. In the first 5 years after 2014, when the U.S. adopted Housing First as its exclusive solution to combating homelessness, unsheltered homeless increased more than 20%, despite substantial increases in federal funding. This increase came after a decade of decline in homelessness of roughly 31% between 2007 and 2014. In California, which doubled down on Housing First by requiring all state funding go to Housing First programs, the results are even more telling. Between 2015 and 2019, unsheltered homeless in California rose 47%. So in my view, the data is clear. Housing First has been a failure. Last year, I introduced the Housing Promotes Livelihood and Ultimate Success Act, or the Housing Plus Act, which would make more inclusive the allocation of grant money to combat homelessness. We tried an exclusive Housing First model and it did not work. Now we should expand the toolkit and bring more providers into the fold. Ms. McDonald, what impact would an approach like the one I've proposed have on combating homelessness, and will allocating federal funds to more rather than fewer qualified providers, including the DOE fund, help transition people out of homelessness? You need to turn on your volume there. Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Yes,
I think we're good.
Okay.
please. Go ahead, please.
Go ahead, Ms. McDonald.
Yes. As I said before, homelessness is not made of a monolithic group of people. And I think it was a disservice to stop funding any transitional programs that provided housing, as well as, more communal services. I think one of the great benefits to us and to the people we serve have been our ability to form strong communities of upwardly mobile people that get support from the staff that are vastly, the majority are formerly homeless folks. I think there have to be a multiple of answers to a very complex issue. We're fortunate because we're a social enterprise. So we get contracts for the work we do. And a lot of donations because of our high visibility on the streets. But social enterprise can be a core piece of some homeless programs. We earn that the money that allows our guys to get paid at $15 an hour and save money and all of those things because we run businesses and they are competitive with for-profit businesses.
Ms. McDonald, my time is running out, so I'll reclaim my time, but I do appreciate the fact that the DOE Fund and similar organizations do provide that wraparound services. And, we need to identify homelessness as not just a problem of lacking a roof over your head, but there's underlying causes for homelessness, whether it's mental health, lack of case management, lack of skills or financial literacy or what have you, substance abuse disorder. We need to meet these folks where they are. And I subscribe to my good friend Juan Vargas's citation to scripture that we need to really care for these people, not just warehouse them, but care for them. And that's why I oppose Housing First. And let me just briefly engage my constituent, Ms. Bush. Your testimony today strongly advocates for the use of Housing First. And of course, your coalition is based in my district. This issue was brought to my attention by another constituent organization in Franklin County. And when I was visiting that transitional housing facility that catered to women recovering from substance abuse disorders, what one of the ladies told me was, please, please, please beg me not to force her to live in a shelter where there are other active users. And the Housing First approach would have forced her to be surrounded by other people who are in active addiction and using drugs. And she thought that was going to, and you can understand, that was going to compromise her recovery. So I invite your feedback on that.
Sure. And thank you, Congressman. It's always good to see you, even over camera on the computer. Janet Gates, the director of the Franklin County Women and Family Shelter, is who I think you're referring to.
Yes.
And
Yes.
she is a good friend of mine. We've known each other for a long time. And having done this work in a rural community, I spent 15 years of my life in Eastern Kentucky. I have worked the overnight shelter shift. I know that we have folks in varying stages of recovery, and that a lot of any sort of substance use issues may have come after becoming homeless. It is, you do want to be careful. I will say that Franklin County Women and Family Shelter seems to have pivoted because their mission really is tied to recovery. And so they are a recovery facility. And thanks to the Career Act and other, community development block grant funding, things that may be more appropriate to the recovery funding and, quite frankly, more generous than how the Emergency Solutions Grant program is funded, they may end up being in a better place. And I just want to say, I have worked in a transitional housing program that was continuum of care funded back in the 2000s. I have done transitional shelter. I became a Housing First advocate because I saw that is what works from my perspective. And I think you're absolutely right. We need to meet people where they are. One of the things I like about true high-fidelity Housing First programming is that it does meet people where they are, and it prioritizes choice and opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. President, again, we